U.S. history. Welcome back to class. Okay, today we're covering a pretty dark piece of history in the Vietnam War. It looks like in the text excerpt I have for you that goes through and in pretty graphic detail explains this whole event. It looks like it's the My Lai Massacre. I've heard it's actually pronounced My Lai. It's a village in South Vietnam. So South Vietnam is the part of the country that we're trying to kind of keep on our side and protect from communism. So the South Vietnamese people, we are there essentially trying to defend them from like communist aggression. But in this horrible, horrific episode of the war, an American company of men goes in and massacres at least probably about 400 people as they were going in and searching for the Viet Cong. Now, I want you to go through and read this whole excerpt. It does have some photos at the end, and you can also go and find a lot of photos online if you were curious and wanted to kind of go down the rabbit hole and learn more about it. I think it's worth covering because the Vietnam War became very controversial. And this, in a lot of ways, was kind of a tipping point in the war when this all was made public. The war had been kind of increasingly becoming unpopular. And this is something that really tips things more in favor of us leaving Vietnam and ending this war. And more Americans start to question why we're there in the first place and how a horrible thing like this could happen. Now, one thing I don't want you to get from reading this excerpt is that all Americans did stuff like this. And in fact, a lot of American veterans, as they would come home after serving their tour of duty in Vietnam, you'll hear horrible stories of American veterans getting off the plane or being at the airport and protesters showing up and like spitting at them and calling them baby killers. Most American veterans, most of our servicemen during the Vietnam War, from what I know of it, served very honorably. They felt like they were doing their patriotic duty. About 30% of the guys over there had been drafted, so they just had to go. But about 70% had volunteered. And I think kind of in both groups, the vast majority of them felt like they were patriots and they were protecting the world from communism. And most of them did not kill any babies and did not go in and murder innocent civilians. However, in the interest of covering the good, the bad, the ugly in history class and trying to give you kind of all sides and perspectives, I think this is a pretty important part and probably one of the most controversial events in the war. So I hope you find it interesting and engaging, this text excerpt that I have for you. It's actually a chapter out of a book that I had bought many years ago called The World's Bloodiest History. And this was what was in there for the Vietnam War. So a really unfortunate thing, kind of a tragic event, but I think it's an important part of history that we cover. And then once you finish reading the text excerpt, you'll have a reading comprehension quiz where I believe I have it as about a 10-question quiz that you'll go through and take Google Forms onto the second post that I'm making today. So it might be a good idea I would recommend you go through and read the text excerpt first. It is fairly long. Like I said, it's about a chapter out of a book. And then maybe leave that open and up so you can reference it while you're taking the quiz. Also know that all of the answers to the quiz are in the text excerpt. So if you go through and read that closely, you should be able to ace it and do really well on it. If any of you need a retake afterwards, by all means, you can request that. Shoot me an email. Otherwise, just make sure you get it completed before the deadline. If you do have any questions about this or want to talk about the My Lai Massacre any further, don't hesitate to contact me. I'd be happy to chat with you more about it.